Okay, Ma, we're ready to go.
Where's my Coke?
Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, boys.
Where's my Coke? I need a Coke. Hard as it is, I need a Coke.
What's the matter, Ma?
Where's my Coke? I need a Coca-Cola.
Ma, look. I forgot the Coke. Let's do it without it, huh? Just this one song. What say, boys?
Damn what the band say. You're supposed to have my Coca-Cola. You knew that. I ain't do nothing without my Coca-Cola.
Just a minute here, Ma. You come in an hour late.
You need to get out of my face, Irvin. I told you keep them away from me.
I'm tired of the nonsense, sir. I'm not going to put up with this.
Let me. Ma, listen. I'll call down to the deli and I'll get you a Coke, but let's get started, huh? Sylvester's standing there ready to go. The band's all set up. Let's do this one song.
Huh? Too cheap to buy me a Coca-Cola. I buy my own. Slow drag, Sylvester. Come on, baby. Get me 3 bottles of Coca-Cola, ice cold. Get y'all something, too. Keep the change.
Yes, ma'am.
Irvin, get away from me. You can wait till I get my Coca-Cola. Ain't gonna kill you.
Okay, Ma. Get your Coke.
Gentlemen, the band room.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies, and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of ColoniaBook.com, and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. We had a little hiccup in our schedule, but we are back for African American History Month. And we were just saying before we got on the air, we are so excited to talk about today's movie. But before we get to that, if you're brand new, yes, this is a podcast about books and movies, although today's episode is not really based on a book, although it is based on a book insofar it's a play. It's a script of a play, which is often called the book. But when the pandemic started, we decided to do a brand new episode every single week. And that means we are taking any kind of literary source that's been adapted into a movie, whether it's a short story or a magazine article or a novella or a song. Once in a while, we'll do a full-blown book. But for the most part, we're doing these shorter sources. We'll see how long this continues to go. But that also means that we're constantly looking for suggestions. And you all have had some fantastic suggestions for this month's programming. If you have ideas for books and movies that you would like us to consider, there's a few places where you can make those suggestions, meet other listeners of this podcast, and interact with us on the internet.
Yes, we do have a basic Facebook page. Be sure to like it. All the episodes are posted there. We also have a private Facebook group. And in the Facebook group, you have to ask to join. It's a private group, but we really do just talk about books and movies and movie stars, and it's a very happy place. And we also look for suggestions, and as Margot was saying, we're always looking for ideas. The literary source needs to be something we can get our hands on somehow, a digital copy of the Levee app or whatever, and the movie needs to be on a major streaming app. So just keep that in mind when you're giving us suggestions. We're at Twitter and Instagram, Book versus Movie, spell it all out. And we have an old-timey email, bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Send us your suggestions there. Or if you would like some stickers, feel free to give us a shout out and we will drop the stickers in the mail for you.
Yes. Yeah. It's just our little kind of book club of the air. And we want to make sure everybody, including ourselves, can easily get access to these books and movies that we're talking about. And if you really, really enjoy the show and you would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
Patreon. We've been doing this show for 9 years. We're coming up on, and we have about 130 episodes in the feed right now. That's free for you. But we also have a Patreon page where we have episodes that are from 2 years ago and then previous to that. I recently put up Saturday Night Fever. We also have Roxanne, The Warriors, and Urban Cowboy that were just put on our Patreon page, and that's the only place you can get them. You can also scroll and look for older ideas there. Some of those are free, but just if you wanted to support the show, it really just helps us get books and movies and the cost for the sound editing equipment and the platform and all that stuff. So we want to thank you all so much for doing that. But we also want to say, if money's tight and that's not possible right now, we understand. If you could just please subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, that would be amazing. Stitcher Radio, by the way, just changed how they took things. So they missed our last episode, so I'm putting that in there. But I want to say, give a 5-star review was from Southern Rebel. Thank you so much for giving 5 stars. It helps us find our people, and it helps us get associated with other really cool podcasts so we can all get to know each other. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate that. I'm going to apologize now. if my dog is barking
I don't
in
hear
the
it.
background. She greatly dislikes other dogs, and it's as we're recording this, it's President's Day, so a lot of people have the day off and are walking their dogs in front of my house at a time that they normally don't do that. So yeah, she's barking right now. Anyway, so apologies if you hear that in the background.
Ambient noises, ambient sounds.
Ambient
working from home.
noises. Today we are talking. We haven't talked about. We were just saying for next. We have some really interesting new ground that we're breaking this month for African American History Month. We've never talked about August Wilson,
Right.
on this show. I can't believe it. Amazingly, we've talked about Denzel Washington, who's a producer on this movie. If you're an American, I hope you're familiar with the work of August Wilson. He is one of the most important playwrights in American theater. I mean, just at any period of time, he just groundbreaking. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Like if you have the opportunity to see an August Wilson play in your community, go, because the writing is so awesome. But let's talk about this extraordinary playwright, Mr. August Wilson.
So August Wilson was born Frederick August Kittel Jr., April 27th, 1945. He was half German and half Black. His father was German. He's from Pittsburgh. His parents split up when he was young, and he adopted his mother's last name and identifies with the African American community that he grew up with. And there's a cycle of plays. There's a series of 10 plays, and they're called the Pittsburgh Cycle, and they are different generations, different decades in the 20th century of America from the African American experience. And then I think like Fences is the big one. That was a play in 87. It's also a Denzel Washington produced production later. Joe Turner's Come and Gone. He was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 2006, he died in 2005. He's won the Pulitzer Prize, a Hans Award. He's won several awards. He's considered one of the most important writers of the 20th century, not just African American. And today we were talking about a work that was produced in 1984. And it is one of those, it's also, I love fiction, historical fiction. So he's taking real life characters and a moment that could very well have happened, but he's putting his own cast of characters around the person. I think one of the most interesting people that we're ever going to be introduced in this show, which is Ma Rainey. She was born in 1886, and she's considered the mother of the blues. So he writes this in 84. And I actually, Margot was on YouTube, went down the rabbit hole, and I found this video of all these writers giving their critiques at 84 of the play when it first came out. All white men. And they had a variety of things to say.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure that, yes. I mean, this is
so glad we finally got what's normally a marginalized voice in our culture, the white male critic. So glad to have that recorded somewhere for posterity.
It was kind of funny to watch. I mean, it was a clip. You know, they used to do these reviews all the time on TV. I don't know if they do them or if there's as powerful anymore. New York one is pretty much it here. But anyway, it's a story about Ma Rainey, and it's 1927, and it's in a recording booth in Chicago. This is one of the few plays that take place outside of Pittsburgh. She's going to this recording booth. It's being run by two white men, and they are basically they were called race records at the time in the teens and 20s when first things started to be recorded, putting onto a record. This is music that's from the South. It's a mixture of gospel. It's a mixture of jazz. It's a mixture of folk music from the times. And it's been passed around from generation to generation in the African American community. The blues specifically is meant to bring people together in sorrow, but also in hope for better. It's a very beautiful form of music, and it's something like Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones and Beatles, like Elvis.
Decades and decades. I mean, it's still going on.
Right.
The Black Keys. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And I mean, she's really such an interesting figure. She's so... Well, just a word about race, quote unquote, race records. So it was a segment of the recording industry where they would record Black artists to sell to Black consumers, so they were happy to make a lot of money off of these artists and these audiences, but they didn't market them as recorded to the white population. They would re-record them, and this went on way into the 60s and on, where they would take works by Black artists and re-record them with white artists for quote unquote mass marketing, meaning marketing to white people. But we're talking about, she's born in we think she was born in 1880 something, right?
1886, but it could have been another time too. People lied about their age.
All the time. Yeah. This is over 100 years ago. It is not long after the American Civil War. Just to put it in perspective, when she's born, like, the Civil War is still kind of going on in some places. She is somebody who does not fit in any way. She's very outspoken at a time where just looking at a white person the wrong way will get you killed. She is writing her own music. She doesn't look conventionally, she doesn't conform to the conventional beauty standard of the time whatsoever, way beyond what her color is. I mean, she's really out there. Like, she really knows her own self. And she's also, at the very least, bisexual, if not just altogether lesbian. What was her name originally? Her real name is Gertrude something, right?
Gertrude Ma Pridgett. And then
Pridgett.
Right. And so she's from Columbus, Georgia. I think it's around 10 or 11. Family shifts and she's going to be out as a professional singer. Her parents were on the Chitlin circuit, which is what it was called at the time. It was an African-American theater company that went, back and forth across the South. And so she traveled with her parents, and then she started singing on her own. And as Margos said, she was known for not just for her vocal abilities, but she was very sexual, very passionate when she performed. She had hot dancers with her. She had gold teeth. She had a grill, y'all. A grill. In like 1911. Right. And she's
so awesome.
She's amazing. It's like feathers everywhere. She traveled in style. She wore a big robe with like a feather sequence on feathers on there. She had hot young girlfriends travel with her everywhere she went. She married a man named Pat Rainey. He was William Paul Rainey, excuse me, in 1904. But there was a marriage of just convenience, companionship, probably. I mean, she still did what she did and he did what he did, but he was very smart with the business stuff, and they learned together. Like, there's a story about Aretha Franklin that she would go on stage and she'd have a big bag with her, and what Aretha had was money in the bag, because she would not go on stage until she was paid. That was it. She didn't care if you're the president or whoever. And Ma Rainey learned that people, if you didn't have your name on the rights for the music as a composer, as a writer, you got nothing. They would just get somebody else to record your music.
Which happened all the time.
I mean,
it happened most of the time. But she knew everybody. Like, she is right there at the birth of jazz, and she is sort of launching this out of that kind of stew of music and culture. She kind of goes in a blues direction, but she knew Sidney Bechet, she knew Louis Armstrong, and then she also knew like Bessie Smith, and she was really like a mentor to Bessie Smith.
Yes.
When we think of, a lot of Americans kind of know a little bit more about Bessie Smith than they do Ma Rainey. She was so shrewd and so outspoken, but like you're saying, like when she first gets married to this Paul Rainey, and we don't know very much about like their relationship or anything like that. Like, we pretty much know that she had relationships with women later on, but she is going around and performing, and she's like this in her music as well. Like, her music is very explicit, really raw and out there. I mean, it's so good. And she is touring in the South, like, where, again, for a lot of people, the Civil War is still going on. A lot of people still think that they're fighting that fight. I mean, I can't even imagine how risky that was. All of this is to say, by the time we get to the point where the play begins, which is still in the 20s, this is still over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
By the time we get to that point, she is a pro. She has many, many, many years. She has seen it all. She has done it all. She has dealt with every kind of jerk that you can possibly imagine. And she knows she's not fooled for a second by anybody. So when she, and I love the way the play, we'll talk about the play in a minute, but I love the way that the play kind of sets up expectations about who this character is and how well August Wilson really delivers that. Because her recording career was so early, we don't have interviews with her, on film. Film existed, but it wasn't like they were filming everything in those days. But we do have some amazing recordings. And they are recordings of her, again, after decades of experience of performing and writing these songs. They're pretty amazing. We listen to them today. They sound so fresh. They just grab you. They're so good. She's so good.
Of course, I did this at San Jose State. I took jazz in America. It was like one of those electives, so I learned about.
I did too.
I know, right? So I know, like, there's Dixieland, and then there's bebop, and there's this, and this, and this happened. She's coming from a generation of like the 12-bar blues, or the very standard blues. Like, this is the chorus. So there's a character named Levee, who's based on When the Levee Breaks, the Led Zeppelin song. Levee is more of a person like Marsalis is, like somebody who wants to put some improvisation in what he's doing. So like the drummer gets a chance, the singer gets a chance, the clarinet guy, like everybody gets a chance. And so he's doing all these different notes, but he's doing it when she's singing. And usually in jazz, like you take turns, right? There's a basic beat.
Yes, there's a structure to it.
There's a structure to it. And he's a symbol of what it's going to turn into. Where she's much more, this is going to be what then becomes swing music, which then becomes big band. Like, it's not.
Yeah, you're right. The play. So if we're going to move to the play takes place at a very interesting time in American music. Like Margot's saying, like, you're at this point, Ma Rainey. And then, like I said, they talk about Bessie Smith in the play, but the blues is definitely on its own kind of a track, and it has its own kind of language and structure. But then you also have jazz going into this slightly different direction. Artists like Louis Armstrong, and that a track that kind of is going to evolve into like a bebop kind of a thing, and more improvisational. But right now, it's all kind of deciding, everybody's kind of picking their sides and who's going to go where. And that's a very interesting element to the play. There's so many layers going on here because you have the whole musical, history that's happening. You have, of course, the American history that's happening. Black people are leaving the South. They're going up to cities like Chicago and New York, working as they're not working in agriculture anymore. They're working in industry. You have Ma Rainey as a woman and that whole history. And then as a Black woman. So there's a lot of layers in this play, and it could easily have gotten bogged down in trying to tell us the story, the history of this and that. But he's such a good writer. I was reminded a lot reading this and watching this film of, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, that we did One Night in Miami.
I can't remember either. It was last year or the year before. I think it's still on the page. It's still in our feed.
It's still in our regular feed, where you have, because Ma Rainey definitely recorded these songs. She definitely made this record. She definitely, I believe she did record it in Chicago. So we know something about that. Just like with One Night in Miami, we know those characters really spent that night together in Miami after that historical fight. But we don't really know what happened in that room. So this play is looking at what could have been going on, I think pretty accurately, what could have been going on in that room on that day that they recorded that historic record.
She's showing up, and we meet the musicians, and in the play it all takes place just at the studio. We don't go anywhere else.
Right. So this happens a lot when we talk about plays to movies. The same thing with One Night in Miami. One Night in Miami, the play is just in the hotel room. You never leave the hotel room. But then in the movie you have all these other locations. In this case, the play is actually, there's two rooms on the set. But they're both at the record studio. There's what's called the band room, which is where the band goes to kind of hash out phrasing and stuff before they're going to go in and record. And then there's the actual recording studio, which is mic'd and wires. And I can imagine in the 1920s, it would have been a lot of like serious wiring going on.
Oh my God. The scene when that, we'll talk about it, but there's a scene
we'll
where
talk about
technology goes bad and you're just like, oh, you have to be, because you record things and then that was that. Like you couldn't start over again.
One shot.
That was your shot.
One shot and you're cutting the record and that's it. Wow. A couple of differences. Other differences just to point out. And I don't know why this was the choice that was made, but I mean, it's good. Play takes place in March. So we're in Chicago in March and it is freezing.
Right.
In the movie, it's in the summertime and it's sweltering hot, which is okay. I don't know why, but
there's a featurette on Netflix that they did on the movie. So they explained it that they just wanted to catch the heat of the summer because there's a scene where Coca-Cola takes center stage, and it just made more sense to like have it be a super hot day, I guess.
It does. Like it's weird when she asked for it in the theater production. You're like, you want a Coca-Cola? It's like 12 degrees outside. Okay, lady. The other thing is that when you read the script of the play, and I've never seen this play on stage. Have you?
No, I wish.
Okay. So in the script, and I can only imagine maybe this was in the playbill, there's this whole section at the beginning of the script where, and it's beautifully written, where August Wilson sets you up to where we are in American history. Like I said a little bit earlier, like blacks going up to big cities and all of that. And he really paints a picture for you of what's going on outside of these two rooms that are on the stage. And it's beautifully written. So I can only assume maybe they put that in like I said, like in the playbill for the audience to read while they were waiting for the show to start, because it's not in the script. It's in the script, but nobody's saying it. It's something that you read before the play begins. When we get to the movie, they handle that in a really cool way. But the play just opens with Ma Rainey's manager, who was white, and the record studio owner, who was also white, of course. And they are like talking about like, okay, she's going to be here. Like, I don't want any kind of diva, her shenanigans again. So we're setting it up like who this person is that we're going to be seeing later. But first we meet the band.
Right. And we have the members of the band have various ages. They're varying levels or degrees in their life. Levee is the young one. He's kind of the young Turk. And like I said, he's the one that wants to do 1,000 notes on his little solo while she's singing. And I get why she's like, not here. But then we also have Toledo, Cutler, and Slow Drag. These are their stage names. Mr. Sturdy Vant. We have Dusty May, who's the girlfriend of our Ma Rainey. And there's Irwin. And then there's Sylvester. And Sylvester's her nephew, who has a stutter. And she's bringing him there as well. So Ma shows up and she's got her girlfriend and her nephew. And everyone's like, okay, you're late. Let's get you on a mic. And she's like, give me a minute. I need to calm down. I need to get in the mood. My dogs are barking. Like, give me a break. And part of it is, and because she she's fighting for respect. They're not just going to give her respect, even though she's one of the best in the business and she has a huge audience. And people, they're still like, to women today, oh, she's big for her britches. She thinks too much of herself. Uppity.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just did a movie for another show. It was The Way We Were, and like the way people would talk about Barbara Streisand. You think she was a tyrant. Like, she has standards. You know, but she's very talented, and she's so smart that she knows how to do things like the contracts to sign, making sure there's a Coca-Cola, making sure that they let her nephew, even though he has this strong stutter, he has to introduce her song, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which was like one of the first twerking songs. It was a dance that was the dance craze.
Yeah.
It really
It's
is.
really amazing. 100 years ago, people.
Right.
100 years ago.
Yeah.
And by the time she records this, like she had sung this song she'd been singing it for years.
Right.
She didn't just like write it for that day. Just to mention about this play, it was originally produced in 1984.
Mm-hmm.
Ma Rainey was played by Teresa Merritt. Levee was played by Charles S. Dutton, if you might remember from the TV series Rock. Remember Rock?
And the movie Rudy.
Oh, yeah. And interestingly, he played the same character 20 years later when they did the revival with Whoopi Goldberg in the role of Ma Rainey. But just to kind of, so August Wilson is his work, again, people devote their PhDs to talking about August Wilson's body of work, and they specifically about this particular series that this play is in. But one of the things that I think is so interesting about this play, again, it's coming out in 1984. This play is coming out at a very interesting time in American history. So just to kind of give us some context, what's going on in music in the early 1980s?
Hip hop
and rap, right? So
breakdancing.
Have this breakdancing. Yeah. And so for those of you who were not around in those days, there was a conservative backlash against these art forms that was saying at the time that these art forms were inciting, I mean, it was so racist. Right. I'm just going to just be blunt, that they were inciting Black people to violence with music and art. And so similarly, Ma Rainey's music faced a very similar kind of critique. But another thing that was going on in tandem with this in the 1980s with music and people criticizing it for this reason, Tipper Gore, I'm looking at you, is this idea, do I want to call it a lie? I could maybe call it a lie, about quote unquote Black on Black crime.
Yes.
And this was something that was a very, very hot topic in the culture when this play is coming out. This idea, this racist trope yet again in American history, when we just lived through it again with Black Lives Matter. They try to do the same freaking thing with Black Lives Matter. Well, Black people are so violent, and just look how violent they are with each other. You know, it's not that we the white people, they're just violent by nature and they can't even help themselves. You know, so it's up to us, the white people, to instill law and order to prevent Black on Black crime. So this play, I think, addresses that issue which was very, very current. Super, like, people on panel shows talking about Black on Black crime every Sunday. This play addresses that in such a great way. I wish we had more art like this today. Maybe we do, and I'm just not aware of it. But also people just aren't. Yeah, August Wilson is just not celebrated the way that he should be. Right. I know this is an Oscar-nominated film, but it's not enough. So, but anyway, that's what's going on in the 1980s, Reagan era, America, and we're looking back to a time where the exact same tropes and themes were happening in the culture. Black people are starting to get a little bit of a foothold in the economy. And so what do we need to do? We need to paint this picture of them as wild, as violent, hypersexualized, uncontrollable, and who can blame them? Look at the music they listen to, basically, and not talking about it as art at all. This play is so good.
I know. Yeah.
So well written.
It's 19
I love these characters.
It's 1927, so that there's this whole like swing music thing that's starting to happen. I mean, people do like the music. You know, blues music is kind of dirty music. It's for going to a bar and making out with somebody that you just met or something like that. There's so
yeah,
much.
You're not playing it on Inauguration Day on the White House steps.
No, and it has its own, and it's so smart of you to like, yeah, because I do remember like when Run DMC was becoming popular, like it was like certain, you know, the way that people complain about rap music from the very beginning, like not, or why are people talking about living in the ghetto over in the Bronx? Like, because that's where they're from.
Like, what are they talking about their lives? How dare they?
I remember seeing one of those behind the musics, and it was like the Allman Brothers or somebody, and he says, "Oh, rap is crap." And he goes, "How come these people? Why don't they just go to their garage and get some instruments and learn to play and blah blah blah?" I'm like, nobody has a garage.
Not everything is about you and for you,
or for you, and it's so like infuriating. But so the story is these musicians are all, you know, our Levee is very ambitious. He has like a new style that he wants to do. It's going to be more complex. It's certainly going to feature more solos of him doing stuff in, you know, along with the person who's the lead.
Turns out the future is him.
Yes, exactly. They're both equally talented, but Ma has just so much more savvy, and she knows how to deal with people, and they're never going to respect her, but they will listen to her. She will make them, you know, I will not sign that paper that gives you the rights to this to the very last second till I make sure that I'm not paying my nephew to be on this record. You're paying him the $25. It's not coming out of my fee. I am going to get a Coca-Cola like Van Halen needed their green M&Ms out of their bowl like 50 years later. Ma Rainey needs her Coke. Mama needs
You know how
Coke.
she is.
Yeah.
Why don't you have the Coke there?
Have
There
it
should
ready.
be like a whole machine, a whole Coke machine. You should have a soda jerk on standby.
Exactly.
What are you thinking?
What are you even thinking? Because it's the talent's the reason people buy it. So just put up with it. She knows what she needs, so give it to her. But in between this, we have these stories of these men and women, how they grew up. And there was a shock people. There's a lot of violence, and there was a lot of racism that they each had to deal with in their own way.
And interestingly, with the band, so like Margot mentioned before, like each member of the band, there's 4 of them, right? Toledo, Levee, Cutler, Slow Drag. Each of them is a different age, and each of them comes from a slightly different region of the country. And yet they have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
They're all in Chicago, and they do all have, in one form or another, you know, a past of having to just learn to live with violence and being under threat all the time just because they're Black. And it doesn't matter that you're working in the fields, or if you're working in a factory, or if you're living in a city, or if you're living in the country. It's because it's never about that, even though they say it is. It's not. It's just about actually that one thing. And we talked about this before. And I'm gonna just for a second poop again on how to make an American quilt.
Okay. All righty.
We've had this before where you have an ensemble cast, which this is. You have an ensemble cast, a piece, and at some point in the piece, every single character has a monologue that gives you some insight into their past and why is she so snippy to everybody? Oh, it's because she had a husband who beat her and da 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 da. A lot of times it's super clumsy. It's just like, okay, I guess it's her turn now, so we're just going to sit here for story time until she's finished talking. August Wilson here does it in a very natural way. I think he weaves these monologues, because they're monologues. He's weaving these monologues into the banter between the musicians and Ma Rainey. in a way that I think feels very like it would happen, like you do in an actual conversation with people. It doesn't feel like he's hitting you over the head. It feels like these people are actually just sharing about their lives. And I think it's just done really well.
Well, musicians are their own breed of people. They like to hang out with one another. There's a lot of downtime. So there's like you're traveling to gigs or you're waiting for something or you're between gigs. So they do become close. I mean, every musician I've ever met, they just kind of their own.
Yeah, they're really a family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they do bond and they do talk about, and especially when they're doing an artistic thing you're expressing every single day, you kind of get a little bit more in touch with your feelings maybe, but they talk about trauma. They talk about family traumas and what's happened to them, where they want to go in the future. And there's a lot of talk about, okay, people are liking this jazz music now that we're doing, and the way people are even starting to buy the records, which is great, but then how do we make as much money as we can? And who's in charge of the record industry? It's usually mob. It becomes, for decades, the mob sort of takes over. So there's like this, they have to work within the rules of the white man, but keep their dignity and keep their spirit alive and keep it the way they want it to be. So Ma Rainey is the one that pushes the most back and into their face. Yes, I am a Black woman with gold teeth and a girlfriend sitting over there, and I'm 50 years old, and you're going to deal with me. And you're going to treat me with respect, and she's brave.
Which, I mean,
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's even shocking reading it in this play from 1984 and shocking seeing it in this movie from 2020. Was it last year, 2022?
2020.
2020, sorry. And I was just thinking like Chadwick Boseman, it was a while ago. But that's how she actually was.
Yeah, that's how she made it.
Like, he's not exaggerating that at all.
No.
Like, if anything, he's kind of underplaying some of the stuff that we know about her. I mean, it's extraordinary. What a character.
She really is interesting. I mean, soon she moves to Georgia. She takes off. She stops touring, and she owns her own theaters, and she dies when she's 53-ish. We don't know exactly when she was born, but she lived a big life, and she was a huge character. And lots of people know who Bessie Smith is, and Queen Latifah played her in the HBO movie. She's important, but this was her mentor. This was the person that guided her into that world. And so the play is about them occasionally talking to one another and talking about good times and bad times. Levee struggling because he wants to do so much more and he thinks he's so ready. And the rest of them are like, calm down, just take your time, get through this gig. Just get through this one step and then you could do the next step. And he's in a hurry.
Like nobody is paying you to be here today to play your music. Sorry. And they even offer to buy them like $5 a piece, which is decent money that back then. But that's not what it's about for him. He really wants to be he thinks he's a star and he thinks he's going to be the next star and he's going to inspire people. And one of the reviews, and it wasn't Jeffrey Lyons or that other guy, but it was one of the white guys, was very upset because there's so much black rage on the stage. It was really uncomfortable. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because they go through, we've learned Levee's story is that his mother was gang raped. And then her father was lynched.
Sorry, he's a little angry about that.
Yeah. They're overcoming that criticism in 1984. But the story takes place in 1927. And just to keep it short, they all interact with one another. And Levee is getting more and more upset. And they're butting heads. They finally do record Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And this is after her nephew does 6 or 7 takes with this poor thing with his stutter trying to get through it. And they have to throw it out every time. And then he gets through it. And then she puts on a performance and it's spectacular. And then what happens is one of the mics just wasn't plugged in enough. And I know this as a podcaster.
It all builds up to the actual, they're like, when is she going to sing the song? Can she just sing the song already? Can we just, for heaven's sake, okay, we now got to deal with the nephew to get to sing the song? Okay. And we finally get to it. And it's so good. And they didn't record it.
And it wasn't recorded. So then they have to do it again. And Levee is... I don't know, in the movie he has a romance, and I don't know if he does in the play.
No, it's different in the play. In the play, he is merely flirting with Ma Rainey's young girlfriend who's there. It's very tame.
Yes.
In the play, it's like a full on, like they have a moment. But in the play, it's really just more that they're flirting. She's flirting back, but it's really just that, which is dangerous enough.
Absolutely. That's Ma Rainey's chick, by the way. So, yes. In the end, so we're going to give this away, and then we promise you we'll start talking about this movie because the movie is excellent. You should see it. It's streaming on Netflix right now, has been for a couple of years, is that Levee basically has a breakdown. They're not going to buy his songs. She's not going to play his songs. He's being told no, and he doesn't have a backup plan. And he's just so upset that
nothing is going his way this day. Nothing.
And then Toledo is one of the players accidentally steps on his shoes, and his shoes are scuffed. It reminds me of Do the Right Thing.
It's totally that.
Yeah.
And he and I'm trying to think. Do the Right Thing came out after this play.
89, yes.
Yeah, and Toledo, we should mention, is the oldest of the musicians. He is the one who I would say throughout the piece, he is the character that is the most compassionate with the other characters. He's also in the script, you're told he's the only one who knows how to read. And he has seen more than any of them. And so he's much more understanding. Like, he understands why Levee's so angry. He understands why Cutler's so frustrated about not being able to have his relationship with his wife the way he wants. He really empathizes with Ma Rainey. He really is the heart of the piece. And there's nothing to do this. We don't hear about the shoes until this moment, we should say, because in the movie it's a whole thing. But in the play, it happens really fast.
He gets super upset. He starts screaming. And they can't calm him down, and he actually stabs him, and he dies in his arms. And then it's just sort of the end of the story. And it happens out of nowhere. When I first read it, I yelled out loud. I was like, "Oh my God!"
I know.
It's so shocking.
I knew it was coming
when you're reading it.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the play, and the ending is different in the play than it is in the movie. Insofar, I mean, it's still that Levee has stabbed Toledo. The youngest one has stabbed the oldest one, who dies. In the play, it ends with one of the white managers walks in on this scene and kind of is like, he's basically like, well, I guess another black guy killed another black guy. I'll go get the police, I guess, kind of thing. It's not a reaction to these as people at all. And this is, people who they know very well and whose work they respect enough to make $1 off of. But there's no, it is very much treated like, well, like black on black crime, go get the cops. And that's how the play ends. The movie has a slightly different ending. The movie doesn't have that scene where the manager comes in and says to call the cops, but it has another very good ending, I think. And that's the play.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's great. It does very well on Broadway. The stars, it's Charles S. Dutton. That was his introduction to Broadway, and the clips I've seen of him, he always puts in a powerful performance. He has a lot of charisma.
He's always really good.
Yeah.
I can imagine how great that must have been.
They actually have an August Wilson Theater, by the way, in New York. Like, this is how important he is. Like, this is a big deal. So let's do this. We're going to talk about the movie now. We'll play the trailer, and then we'll get into this fabulous movie.
A 1, a 2, a you know what to do.
This be an empty world without the blues. I try to take that emptiness and fill it up with something. But they want to call me Mother Blues. That's all right with me. It don't hurt none.
Where's the horn player?
I got a friend.
Come on, Levee. You rehearse like everybody else.
I'm gonna get me a band and make me some records. I knows how to play real music, not this jug band shit.
You call that playing music?
I know what I'm doing. Go on and fire me, I don't care.
When I got there, they began to say.
That's to get the people's attention. That's when you and Slow Drag come in with the rhythm part. Me and Cutler play on the break.
Levee, the sooner you understand it ain't what you say, it's what Ma say to count.
We'll be ready to go in 15 minutes.
We'll be ready to go, and Madam says we're ready to go, and that's the way it go around here.
These records are gonna be hits.
Every colored man in the world got to do his part. I'm gonna tell the white man just what he can do.
They don't care nothing about me. All they want is my voice.
About them songs I give you.
They're not the right songs. I don't take them off your hands for you.
I got my time coming to me.
You don't know nothing about what kind of blood I got, what kind of heart I got beat here. Come on. Come on!
Wonderful. We got that boy. Good session, Mom. We got our top winner. Yeah, you did.
This movie is directed by George C. Wolfe. The screenplay was adapted by Ruben Santiago Hudson, and Denzel Washington is one of our producers. He's on a mission to try to get as many of these plays produced into film as possible so that people can see them. You know,
I hope he makes it.
I hope he does too.
Oh, I want them all to be a movie now. George C. Wolfe he's mostly known as an extremely well-respected theater director. And you can understand why they would bring in a theater director for this particular piece. Most notably, he directed, if you recall, Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
that was a thing.
Did they make a movie of that? Because that was such a groundbreaking piece too. At this kind of around that was later. That was in the 90s. I remember it was after I'd moved to New York.
Yes,
that was playing at the Public Theater. He was artistic director of the Public Theater. So he is a big shot. George C. Wolfe as a theater guy. I don't know who else you would get. I mean, this is somebody who knew August Wilson, worked with him, very closely, and really important guy. Maybe you may not have heard of him, but if anybody in the theater world knows who he is.
We should say that this was filmed in Pittsburgh, which stood in for Chicago. It was in the summer of 2019. So that's also the heat you could feel from this movie. It feels hot and sticky, and everyone's just kind of getting through this day. Boseman, unfortunately, died in August of 2020. So it was a year later. God. And he gives such a great performance.
The man come in here, call you a boy, tell you to get up off your ass and rehearse it. You ain't had nothing to say except, yes, sir.
I can say yes, sir, to whoever I please. What you got to do with it? I know how to handle white folks. I've been handling them for 32 years. Now you gonna tell me how to do it? Just because I say yes, sir, don't mean I'm spooked up by him. I know what I'm doing. Let me handle it my way.
Well, go on and handle it then.
Toledo, you're always messing with somebody. Always agitate somebody with that old philosophy bullshit you be talking. You stay out of my way about what I do and say. I'm my own person. Just let me alone.
All right, Levee, you right. I apologize. Ain't none of my business you spooked up by the white man.
All right, see, that's talking about. Y'all back up and leave Levee alone.
Oh, come on, Levee. We was all just having fun. Toledo ain't said nothing about you. He ain't said about me. You just taking it all wrong.
Ain't meant nothing by it, Levee.
Levee got to be Levee. You don't need nobody messing with him about the white.
It makes me so sad because he was so talented and I mean, I can't even start to talk about Black Panther. I will cry.
I know.
But seriously.
I put that clip on our Facebook page when
I can't.
When he met the kids
on
Tonight's Show. I watched it like 100 times. It's like one of my favorite clips ever. He was so inspirational. So we have Viola Davis as our Ma Rainey, who's just, we should say Maxine Lewis is doing Ma's singing voice. Chadwick Boseman is our Levee. We have Glenn Turman as Toledo. Coleman Domingo as Cutler. Michael Potts as Slow Drag. Johnny Coyne as Mel Sturdivant. Taylor Page as Dusty May. She's really good.
She is very good. Yeah.
Really good.
She has more to do in this than she does in the real play.
Exactly.
It's not a huge cast. Glenn Turman, for those of you who remember It's a Different World, It's a different world. So he was on. Yeah, he was a later character on Different World. He played the military guy, the Colonel Taylor.
Oh yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Okay,
he was in a lot of things, but a lot of us remember him from Different World.
Dusan Brown is Sylvester. Jeremy Shamos is Irvin. And there is a scene where there's Ma Rainey, just like in the play, in the movie, she basically is going to be arrested in her car. Like she shows up and it's a flurry of activity. Like nothing's calm about this woman.
She's like, am I the drama? I love the opening of this movie because, as I said in the script, if you read the script, or maybe if you read it in the playbill, there's August Wilson had written this whole beautiful opening, giving us the historical context of what was going on and all that. And there's a really nice montage that we get of Chicago, of all of that, basically, but in a really nice, very, very nice montage. I think it's really good. I love one of the things, and this sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, when you go from a play to a movie and we add in other locations, it doesn't always work, but I think they use it really, really well because there's still a theatricality to all of the different locations that we see. I really love that we get to see Ma in the hotel. Mm-hmm. And I love that moment when she's walking out to her car. She has to go through the lobby and all of these white people in this fancy hotel have the look on their faces. They're like, what's she doing here? Why is she dressed like that? Why didn't you tell us we were staying in a hotel with a black woman? It's all on their faces. And I just think it's really, really well done. I think we also get more of the nature of the relationship between Ma and, what's the young girl's name?
Dusty May.
That's a little more explicit in the movie than it is in the play, which I think it works super, super well. The scene that I like that we get to see the car accident in the play. It happens off stage, mm-hmm. and everybody kind of blows into the studio with the flurry of that. But I like that it takes place out on the street is really fun for the movie. I like I don't think this is in the play, this weird device that they have throughout the movie where when the musicians are in the band room, there's this door that's locked. There's a door into the room, and then there's what seems to be a door out of the room that's locked. And Levee keeps trying to open this door. Nobody else is bothering with it, but he keeps banging on the door, trying the doorknob. He's throughout the whole thing. Every time he's in this room, he's got to try this door. And I don't think that's in the play.
Yeah, I don't either. I saw this movie a few days ago, so I'm forgetting some
mm-hmm.
things, but that's, yeah.
But anyway, he's throughout the play, he's banging it. He's trying it. It's just like his thing, this kind of tick that he keeps trying to, and then he finally at the very end, busts through the door. Like when everything has gone wrong. And I think it might be before he stabs Toledo, but everything is gone. He finally breaks the door open and you're like, okay, he's going to be free. He goes outside. No, it's an air shaft. It's just a little brick square just for ventilation and nothing else. Which is, again, just gives us a lot about his character. It's great. I think all of the choices that they made in adapting this for film really work so well, really add to the story, add to the characters, just brings a lot more flavor to it. I think it's really super good. And of course, the cast is outstanding.
They're actors, and they were trained by, I'm not sure if it's Winston or Branford Marsalis, but one of the Marsalis brothers actually trained the actors to play those instruments. So, and to see,
you can tell they're really playing.
They're really playing, and it's exceptionally okay. We also have to talk about the costumes in this movie and the.
Oh, they're so great.
The art direction.
They're so good. The opening. So in the opening, as they're setting everything up, it all kind of leads up to Ma Rainey. So unlike in the play, we see Ma Rainey before she comes into the studio. We've seen her a few times by the time we get to that moment where in the play, it's this kind of big reveal of Ma Rainey. And that could have been a very bad choice, but I think it works super well in the movie because we get to see because we see her performing. We see her performing in two venues. One is a tent in the middle of the country, and the other is on a great big stage. And in both cases, you kind of see what she really means to her audience.
Yes.
And how well what that connection is that she has with them. And therefore, when she shows up in the studio, when she finally shows up in the record studio, we get why she is such an important commodity to this record studio. But yeah, the costumes, the dancing girls. Oh, I love it.
They won
great costumes.
The movie was nominated for Best Actor for Chadwick Boseman, obviously was posthumous, and Viola Davis was nominated for Best Actress. It won for Best Costume Design, Anne Roth, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, which is super on point, and it was nominated for Best
great.
Production Design. It looks incredible. There is the scene in the movie where they have a sex scene between Dusty and Levee, and I'm glad Levee got something before.
I know, it's like the one thing.
What good thing happens to him?
The one thing that worked out for him.
I love everything about this movie. It's so well done. It's so smart. The scene where, like I said, the Sylvester has to talk into the record and they bring it out.
I think they do that so well. It's and I was a little bit worried when I read the play, because I had not read the play. I had never read the play. I had never seen the movie until this week. And I was a little concerned when I read the scene in the play. I could see reading it like how live you would be, just like on tenterhooks while he's trying to make the line and he's trying to make the line. I was a little worried that it wouldn't translate to film, but they do this director is just, I mean,
yeah.
When you get the best, I mean, this is what happens.
Swell affair. Soon as the boys found out that I was there, they said, "Come on, Mom, let's go to the cabaret." When I got there, they began to say, "I want to see that dance they call the black bottom. I want to learn that dance. Want to see that dance they call your big black bottom. It'll put you in a trance." All the boys in the neighborhood, they say, "Your black bottom is really good. Only show me your black bottom. I wanna learn that dance." Early one morning, about the break of day, Grandpa told Grandma, I heard him say, "Get on up and show your old man your black bottom. I wanna learn that dance. I wanna learn that dance."
Okay, that's good, Ma. That sounded great. Good job, boys.
See, I know you can do it. All you have to do is set your mind to it.
He did good. He did better than I thought he would.
That's my bet.
There was the only thing, and again, I think it was the right choice. The big thing that was cut from the movie that was in the play, for the most part, they're adding stuff, which is great. Mm-hmm. The one thing that they're subtracting, there's a little bit more of the monologues of the different characters in the play than there is in the movie. Mm-hmm. And also, interestingly, there's more singing. In the play, I think it's Slow Drag has a song that he does. There's more. There's a lot more music in the play than there is in this movie. But I think if they had brought all of that music and put it where it is in the movie, it would have slowed the movie down too much.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of works that they trimmed it down to just the bare necessities, so that when we finally get to that moment where she's going to sing that song, it really delivers.
Yeah. And I love I love how she toys with these men when they're pushing her to sing, and she's like, "Not without my Coke. You can't, you're too cheap to buy me a Coke." She gets it out of her bra, gets the money out of her bra, and sends two men over to the store. The store where, by the way, they're going to be harassed because,
yeah,
unfortunately, this is the product of the time. But there's so many moments like that, and this film just does everything so beautiful.
I like that we get that moment where they walk into the store and like, of course, everybody in the store is white. And now they have to like, how are they going to buy? It's not, they can't just like walk in and buy a Coke. There's going to be a whole thing.
It's going to be a thing, right?
It's going to be a thing. And we don't need to see the thing. We just need to see the faces in the store to know that it is going to be a thing. Little moments, little touches like that have been added to this version that I think are so great. And also Chadwick Boseman's character, Levee, we right off the bat, with the shoes.
Mm-hmm.
That happens really early on. He's on his way to the studio where, going into the studio that day, he believes that this is going to be the start of his whole big world opening up. And this is going to be a banner day for Levee. And so he sees the shoes. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to need those shoes for my big day. And he buys these fancy shoes. So the shoes and the whole thing about the shoes throughout the movie, that's not in the play at all. It's just at the very end, Toledo steps on his shoe. But it's not like it's a brand new shoe or anything like that. But I like that they have this thing about his shoe because it represents, like I said, all his hopes and dreams.
His next
for
step.
This, what's going to be a big day. His next step. Yes.
Yeah, it works literally and figuratively.
Hey, watch it now. Stepped on my shoe.
Excuse me there, Levee.
Look at that. Look at that. Stepped on my shoe. What you do that for?
I said I'm sorry.
You gonna step on my goddamn shoe. Look at that. Look at what you done to my... I ain't step on your shoe. What you want to step on my shoe for?
Man said he was sorry.
How the hell he gonna be sorry when he done ruined my shoe? I'm talking about sorry. You stepped on my shoe, you know that? See what you done?
I said, excuse me. Now it's over. What you want me to do, huh?
My shoe like that. I ain't step on your shoe. Huh? Okay. Look at this. Nah. Look at what you done. Look at that. That's my shoe. You did it. You did it. You stepped on my shoe with them raggedy ass clod hoppers.
Ain't nobody studying about you and your shoe. I said, excuse me. If you can't accept that, then the hell with it. What you want me to do?
You stepped on my shoe. He stepped on my shoe, he did. Honest. Cutler, he stepped on my shoe. What'd he do that for? Toledo, what you do that for?
Yeah, what can I say? It was nominated for dozens of awards. It came out during COVID. Nobody was going to a movie theater. He won many awards, the BET Awards. There's the AARP Awards, which is becoming kind of a big deal. Critics' Choice. It's just fantastic. Chadwick Boseman is so good in this movie. It's so heartbreaking. He's so thin, like he's so slim when you're watching it, and it's hard for me to not realize like he's somebody who's going to be gone in a year. But his eyes are so expressive. Like,
oh my gosh, at the end when he's there holding Toledo in his arms, oh, I can't take it.
It's heartbreaking.
Oh,
absolutely loved it. I loved reading about it. I'm gonna collect the August Wilson plays for myself. I'm excited to see what other productions. We should definitely do Fences one of these days.
Yes, yeah. That's another one that was made into a movie. I wish I hope that Mr. Washington succeeds in getting all of this stuff on celluloid, so we all have an opportunity to see it with this level of a cast and this level of a director. I'm so glad that this movie exists.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to say it's a tie for me between book
Same.
Yeah, because I think they stick closely enough to it.
Yeah, they don't change any of the things that they, as we said earlier, any of the changes that are made really just add to the experience of the play, really communicate some stuff that might not have come across if they had stuck strictly to the play, just like with One Night in Miami. Same thing. Like that was another one where they just, the choices that they made added so much to the story. So yeah, I also agree it's a tie, and all of it is because of Mr. Wilson's excellent writing.
Yeah,
really.
And these performances,
really
I can't say enough. I mean, you and I are huge Viola Davis fans. We've talked about her on this show several times.
I mean, national treasure. There, I said it.
Yes. And Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P.
We're so lucky.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. great suggestion from the folks in the Facebook group.
Yes.
And we have 1 week left of African American History Month, and we have a very fun choice that we're going to do next. I'm very excited.
We're going to be covering Black Klansman, which is based on
we've never
a short
done
story,
Spike Lee.
We've never covered a Spike Lee film, and it's a shunda.
Yeah.
But we will do it now.
It's based on a memoir. It's not long, and it's easy to find if y'all want to read it before next week. And I can't believe we've never done Spike Lee under any. We just never have. We haven't done it in musicals. Nothing. But I'm very excited to talk about this movie. I've never seen it. I didn't see it when it came out.
Oh, I did see it. Yeah, it's great. It's got
I can't
some
wait
of
to
my
see
favorite
it.
actors. Yeah.
And I can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
I'm very, very, very excited. And if you have suggestions and then next up we do have musicals, right? Next month
Musicals
is
in March.
In
But
March.
we have April, May coming up. What are your ideas?
Yep. We need ideas.
Send us all your ideas to all those places I mentioned at the top of the show. And once again, our email is book versus movie podcast. Spell that all out at gmail.com. And once again, if you would like some stickers, we'd be happy to send them to you in the U.S. mail. Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all of my social media callouts are at She's Not Your Mama. And where can they find you?
You could find me at Brooklyn Margot on Twitter. On Instagram, I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick. My site is brooklynfitchick.com. And I am on the TikTok at Margot Donahue. And I've been posting a lot of film stuff there lately. So if you're interested in that, go check it out.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back with Black Klansman. I can't wait.
Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We are a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. We follow the hashtags LadyPodSquad and Podern Family. If you want to support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, go to Patreon, and look for Book versus Movie podcast. We have a basic Facebook page, but we also have a private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and type in Book vs. Movie Podcast Group if you want to join that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Book vs. Movie. Spell all those words out. If you'd like to send us an email, it's Book vs. Movie Podcast, spell that all out, at gmail.